Now, in April, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed into law the Employment Equity Amendment Act, but concerns have been raised, with some opposition parties referring to it as incoherent or racial engineering. They say it has specific targets that have been set for different sectors in different provinces, which seem to have shifted the focus of conversations to race rather than the need for transformation in workspaces. Companies have been given a chance to comment up until the 12th of June. For more on this, we're joined now by Gerhard Papenfus, who is the CEO of NEASA in studio. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, Paul.
The debate on this Employment Equity Act rages on, essentially. I mean, there's mixed reaction on the impact, on whether or not it really will achieve a transformation and, deal with transforming the economy. You have voiced your concerns. You say it's an ill-conceived idea. What are your biggest concerns? Because I understand there's also a legal challenge looming in the midst of all these talks.
Yeah, I think there will be a huge legal challenge coming from various sources, and we will be part of that. Mm-hmm. What's our biggest concern? It is bringing the issue of race right back into the debate, and it will force employers to make appointments on the basis of the skin color of a person. Now that's taking us back. So when and I'm speaking from the viewpoint of business, when I sit there and I want to employ a person, mm-hmm. that really is the last thing I want to look at. The merit, the ability of a person to do the job, the attitude, the ability of a person to contribute to the interests of my business. Yeah. That's the thing I want to look at, and I actually want to forget about anything else. So I want to look at you and say, this is the person I want. And that is very much a subjective decision. Mm-hmm. But, since I'm the person that pays the salary, yeah. It is I that makes that decision, and I take the risk. Because if things go wrong in South Africa in the employment relationship, it always turns out a very, very expensive exercise. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody to turn to. It's my decision, and I take the risk. So we say no, government cannot interfere. Now, the moment, when I say that people think, okay, you're trying to cover for a particular race. Yeah. Any business that elect to appoint somebody on the basis of skin color is simply not wise. It is, if you find a good person, mm-hmm. regardless of the race of that person, and you still decide you don't want to appoint that person, well, you do it at your own risk, and you will simply lose by doing this. So we say no, we cannot do that. It is, how can you do it? How can you do it? How can I take the skin color of a person? We're the same people. The fact that our skin color differs somewhat it's a very small part of what we really are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the ANC and COSATU have dismissed claims along the racial lines, saying yeah. that perhaps there's a misinterpretation of the proposals. What do you make of that?
No, there's no misinterpretation. What the regulation says that, for instance, mm-hmm. In a particular sector, within 5 years, 50% of your component must be black. Yeah. For instance, well, that's it. There's nothing more than that you can read into it. The fact between that and a quota is this is a 5-year period, but throughout you'll have to explain to a government official, of all things, why I've decided to appoint this person instead of that person. Mm-hmm. And I say, no, we cannot. I think this thing, even if they implement it, and I hope they're not foolish enough to do that, but even if they implement it, they will realize in due course that this is simply not workable. Yeah. You cannot do that. This type of social re-engineering was tried in the past. Now, we know that was a huge cock-up. Yeah. We want to repeat it now. It's just from a different side. It didn't work then. it will not work now. This thing will simply, it will simply get to a point where everybody realizes we've wasted our time and resources on this.
The companies have been given some time to comment, I mean, up until the 12th of June.
Yeah.
How are you going to take advantage of that? What factors do you want to put on paper and perhaps hope that there will be some consideration to those?
Well, there's the impracticality of this whole thing. That's one thing. How are you going to do that? Remember, the economy is not growing. Now, let's ask this. If government says, I want X percentage of this color in that job, now my question is, how are you going to get there? The economy is not growing. Do you have to retrench somebody to get there? Remember, each one you retrench, that will be challenged. Who's going to pick up that bill? The employer will have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be in trouble. That's one thing. But the main thing that we want to explain, and we hope government understands that, is that you cannot interfere in the right of an employer to appoint the person that he wants in a job, right or wrong. That person, because he takes the risk. And any business, a businessman that makes an appointment, not appointing the right person for that job is simply not a wise businessman. Taking everything into account. Look, when you're in business, nobody covers you. There's no fallback position. There's no bailout. You better find the best person for each job, each appointment. So you cannot interfere with that. And if a businessman makes the wrong decision, he'll find out that was the wrong decision, and next time you correct it. But you cannot, for that, depend and allow an official sitting somewhere in a head office in Pretoria tell you, you know, you can't do that, you should have done that, it cannot work. That's controlling the thing from the center. That cannot happen. Because
we know that it really is stirring up political tensions as well as economic anxiety, with a lot of questions being asked now on the impact it could possibly have on an economy that's already battered by load shedding, inflation, and so forth. How much of a dent do you think it will have, looking at the fragility of the economy?
Well, you know, I'm of the view you cannot retrench a person for this reason. But you know, there might be debate about it. But I say you cannot. So a company that says, look, if we're forced to do this and we don't want it, that will severely impact on the growth of that company, because that will impact on the freedom of employment. And the moment an employer gets to the point where he says, but listen, I'm reluctant to employ, that has an impact on jobs. Now, the biggest fight we have to fight is the fight of poverty and unemployment. To focus on this, let's say, you know, we've heard in newspapers, and I can't confirm that fact, that if 500,000 whites will have to be fired. You've read it on news, you know, it was headlines in newspapers. I can't confirm that. My question is, how many people will be employed by that? And what will that do to employment of blacks? 500,000. It's irrelevant. But the point is, the impact in the workplace is huge. Can you imagine? I sit here and I've just employed you, and you think, I wonder whether he's employed me because of my skin color, of who I am. From my side, if I employed you, but you're second best, you know, the first time you screw up, I'm going to tell you, you know what, you were actually my second best. If I employ him, if I employ you, I'm going to tell you from day first, you are my first choice.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you will break the culture of business. You will break the culture of the workplace. You cannot do that. And can you imagine the tension what you will create? Now, if you have tension in the workplace, there's no productivity. The focus change. No, we don't have to do that. We must grow this economy. And this is one area, the private sector, like the business in which you're involved, is the cornerstone of this economy. Everything is broken, more or less. It is time that we switch the focus to how we can work together to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And race you should take out of the debate. And the talent is so in abundance. Goodness, focus on that. And a clever employer sees talent and he employs them.
Yeah. So when it comes to the legal talks that are perhaps looming and the civil society organizations coming together to try and bring it to the forefront, what sort of conversations are happening behind the scenes here when it comes to groupings and the legal basis for the arguments of the court?
Well, there are discussions. I think there's so many groupings that want to challenge this thing, and I think the groupings will increase because all over this is a problem. All over this is a problem. So, and what is the kind of challenge? I think there's first of all the constitutional challenge. Can you do that after we've been through wars to get out of a racial dispensation, going back into the racial dispensation? That's, first of all, the constitutional challenge. Secondly, the right of a business to determine who he wants to employ. And to be frank, if there's a businessman sitting in a career somewhere and says, I've got 8 employees now, I'm just using this as an example, I'm now the 50 years old, and I want them, of them to be colored. Well, I said, you're right. If you have an Indian business in KZN that, how they work, it's an Indian culture, and you interfere there and say, no, you have to do that. Yeah, you break that culture. Can you do that? You're not paying their salaries. That's your thing.
Well, and very lastly, before we let you go, perhaps let me just interrupt you. Where do you think this bill is lacking when it comes to its intentions of promoting diversity and equality in the workplace? I mean, we have heard of scenarios where the black and white counterparts in the same job with the same qualifications, where the white counterpart will get paid better based perhaps on race. Same job, same skills, same ability. Where do you think it's falling short?
Well, that's somewhat of a different debate. First of all, you can't do that. That's the answer. You cannot do that.
But it's being done.
Well, I won't deny. But if a business does that, it is transgressing, is breaking the law. You cannot do that. You can only determine salary on the basis of the qualification, the nature of your job, etc. You just can't do that. If that happens, if I do that, I'm simply not wise. If that comes out that I do that, well, and that's not even the debate. How do you justify yourself? The answer to that is nobody is allowed to do that. You cannot discriminate on that basis. That's the answer.
Okay.
But that is a different debate. Can you do it? No, you can't do that. You're not allowed. If you say it's happening,
so where are the loopholes? Where's
there's actually no loophole. If you're talking about different levels of remuneration on the basis of race, and you say it does happen, well, there's not a loophole. It's a question of they do it, but they're not caught out.
Yeah.
That's the loophole.
What I'm essentially talking about is that this is meant, as the Employment Equity Bill, meant to promote diversity, equality in the workplace, and transform the economy.
Yeah.
Where and how is it failing in achieving that?
Well, if you have a growing economy, the first thing what you need is an economy that grows, that forces you to employ. And there's certain things that you realize, I need people. I need people to do the job. Mm-hmm. And when you're looking for people and they sit there, you will take them regardless of their race. But in an economy that doesn't grow, you will really shoot the whole idea of promoting diversity in the food, because the economy isn't growing. Yeah. It's not just for reslicing the cake. It is really increasing the size of this cake. And I tell you, nobody. I'm involved in our business organization have youth development programs. 99% of the people that benefit from their programs are black people. employed by 80% white companies. Why are companies standing in queues to get them? Because of their quality. And we put people in development programs at businesses, and 70% of them are then employed at those companies. That's very high.
Yeah.
What does it say? Do the job, and you get the job. Race doesn't play a role, and there's this notion that it does. I'm telling you, it does not.
Yeah.
No businessman will overlook a quality person for a job if he knows that it's in the best interest of his business.
Very well. Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. Thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us in studio.